Hi everybody, Martin here. I hope you are all well. Big warm welcome back to the workshop for this week's demonstration. As usual, we've got a few minutes, well about 20 minutes before we actually get started with the demonstration, but it's great to see so many people here. I think there's 121 people just tuning in at the moment, so it's great to see so many people here so early. I've got a few bits to do, so please do enjoy the chat whilst I sharpen some gouges and just finish getting everything ready for this evening's demonstration for you. Cool. Remember my buttons. There we go. First thing I need to do is just say hello to a few people. Who have you got in? We've got Derek Brightwell. Good evening, Derek. Steve Ash. Hi, Steve. Jennifer Stroughton. Nice to see you again. Colin Watson, the Crazy Woodman, good to see you too. YV Woodshed, that's Andrew down in Somerset. Lauren Becker, nice to see you too, over in the US I think, Lauren. Design and Make, hello. Tom Dullage, good to see you too. And Gerard Dubois, David Clark. And Frederick Noseguard is in Norway, I think. Norway or Denmark. Can't remember which one. Cut Sand Wax Admire, good evening Leisure. James at Wessex Technical, nice to see you too. And Ronnie, Don McKee, nice to see you as well. And Kim, Ronnie, good to see you as well as Tony in Tony's Garage. Julian Clifford, Four King Owls. I sound like I'm commentating on a race on a horse race. Jerry Dempsey, Krisky Wood Creations, nice to see you too. Yeah, enjoy the chat. I've got to sharpen a few gouges, and I'll be back with you. Good evening, Paul Lockwood. Nice to see you here again this week. I've got a few little bits and pieces that I need to do, like sharpen my gouges from last week and stuff. So I'll just flick over various cameras, so it's almost like a demonstration, but not quite. If I can find the right Allen key, that'll help. It was in my pocket earlier, but it's not there at the moment. That music with Digby's entry video is stuck in my head. That's the one. Not quite happy with that. We'll do that again. Bear in mind that when I'm doing this I can't see any questions that might be appearing on the screen. That'll do. Then I can put that back in its handle. Oh. Where are we? There we go. That one. I got myself in a terrible mess last week with gouge handles and stuff like that. So this week I'm not planning on using anything else really other than gouges this week. Keep it nice and simple. Nice and easy. But I do need to switch that tool out for a different one. That gouge, I think. Now, why did I do that? Never mind. Doesn't matter. Ought to have some glasses on, really, if I'm using the Pro Edge. That'll do. Just take the heel off it. Super. So that's 2 gouges. I'll just sharpen the other 2 that are kind of backup gouges, which will just save me having to sharpen halfway through the demo. So that's the 55-degree one. And this is a long 45 degrees, I think. Yeah. Or not, I'm not sure what this one is actually. I'll do. There we are. And I think I better do a spindle gouge as well. That one, I think this one's 45 degrees. Yeah. Oops. That'll do. That should be sharp already, that one. Yep. Don't need those. I think that's about it. What are we saying in the old chats then? Hi Mole Valley Maker, nice to see you. And Brent Beecroft. Hi Brent, how's things? Mike Walt's in the house as well. Hi Mike. Ben, Ian. Cool. Dee 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 dee. Ba 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 ba. So what's everybody been up to this week? Hodgepodge Woodworks. Rubber Dub Woods in. Gav Saday Woodwork. That's a new name for me. I don't recognise that name. Lee Moore. What does taking the heel off the bevel do? It just. Oh, hi Tony. Removing the heel there just helps to make an ever so slightly smoother cut on the inside of bowls and coves and stuff. Julian. Hi Julian. Oh, Colin French. Hi Colin. How you doing? $223 people now. Wow. Evening, Leona. Ba, ba, ba. Matthew Gallagher. Carl in Tennessee. Hi, Carl. How are you doing? Thomas Kroll. Right, so we've got about 10 minutes before we get started. I'm just going to have another quick check just to make sure that I've got everything in place that I need. I've got my sanding thing there. I've got kitchen towel. I've got some embellishing. I still haven't decided entirely, completely on what we're going to do tonight, other than the thin wall. But we'll see. I will just double check the cameras are okay. That's the tool rest cam, tailstock cam, over the spindle camera. That looks good. Might need to adjust that ever so slightly, but we'll see. Actually, no, let's do it now. Demos, thin wall. Let's just twist that round a little bit. No, put it back. Now we'll leave it there. It's a little bit clearer, I think. I can adjust it. I'll do that. Put my teeth in. I'll adjust it again when we get to doing the inside of the bowl. That's probably a good idea. Oops. Turn that one off. There we go. And if I do that, how far down can I get? About there. Yeah, that'll do. It's about as good as it's going to get. That's as far round as I can stretch it. Yeah, that's going to have to do. I can't get it any better than that. 269 people. So 10 minutes to go, folks. 10 minutes to go, and we'll get started. do. Yes, Andrew, the bin has been emptied. I made a point of emptying the bin this evening, or this afternoon rather, because it was kind of full. We've had a lot of deliveries here recently. Ben, no, I don't find it's bumpy over the line. It sounds like it, but I don't find it bounces at all. Alex, hi Alex, in the north of Scotland. I hope you're well. Andrew, I'm very good. Thank you very much. Nice to speak to you yesterday. Lots of chat going on. Martin, any chance of a pyrography live video, maybe turning a tiny platter like the one on your box set? Yes, in the future. Yeah, why not? It might be a long one. Or I could do part of it in advance. Yeah, there's no reason why I can't do that. Hi David Hall, nice to see you. I ate very well, thank you very much. Do 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 dee. Elias Horrock. Hello Martin, what's your favourite gouge brand? Oh, that's to be honest, I use Sorby gouges. I get on with them really, really well. Although I do have a couple of others up here in my rack. So I use the best one for the job, whether it's a Sorby one. I haven't got any Crown ones up here just at the moment, but I do have an Axminster one and some from Denmark. James, yeah, we're out of sweets at the moment, James. Sorry. To be honest, I am very, very partial to a little fun bag of Haribos. Can't you tell? Gerard, yes, they can. Yes, the intrinsic colours can be applied with a sponge. I did a live demonstration back in the summer using a sponge application. Ron, no, we've got Ron Kisco. We've got another week and a bit in lockdown yet. Steve Ash, if you're not confident in what you're doing, I would suggest not doing it. Martin Isaacs, South Carolina. Good evening. How are you? Paul Straker, the shop is coming along an absolute treat. Thank you, Paul. I can't show you particularly easily at the moment because I've got the cameras set up, but if I remember towards the end of the demonstration I will just swing this camera around and just give you a little pan inside the shop. Jason Wheeler, the rubber chuckies. I won't be able to get hold of any of those until probably February at the earliest, as the guy who makes them, Don, is taking a bit of a break for a few weeks. Sea sponges are fantastic, Julian. I've got a load somewhere, but I can't find them at the moment. Gareth Bailey, when turning a bowl I get grooves in the blank. Gareth, there's probably one thing that you're doing, or one thing that you could do better if you're getting grooves. And I assume you're talking on the inside. That would be to make sure that you have bevel contact with the wood on the inside of the bowl. You'll be seeing a bit of that this evening, that's for sure. Tim Grange, yes, we've got two bowl scrapers at the moment, the large one from Crown and the large one from Robert Sorby. Jason Wheeler, you're very welcome. Hey, it's Silk's 55th birthday today. Happy birthday, Paul. I'm not going to sing. So yeah, Paul, Silk, happy birthday over there in Basingstoke. I hope you've had a nice day. Alan, have you changed your preference of your angles from 55 degrees? No, Alan, I haven't. I still prefer a 55-degree angle on my gouges. But I do have a 45. I've also got two. I've got a main 45 degree and a spare 45 degree as well, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. But no, 55 degrees is still my preference. Ian the Monkey Hanger Turner, a rubber chucky. I'll show you a couple. These are rubber chuckies. They're basically a set of cone centres made from a very high density rubber with a screw thread in the back, so you can attach them to your live centre. Particularly very, very useful if you haven't got the time to make your own live centres. Right, 2 minutes. Let's have a very quick break for 2 minutes, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to get going with this evening's demonstration. Okay, I'll be back very shortly. Where's that gone? I haven't used this for ages. Is it that one? Let's press this button. It's not that button. Can't remember. Never mind. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Find the right button. Right, back again. Okay, right, very quick mouthful of coffee as well, and we'll get cracking on. No, Rob CP, I popped out for a quick go on my vape. Right. Okay, right, should we get going then? Oh, hang on a minute. Let me put my phone on silent, otherwise it's going to ping at me all evening. Let's put it on there. There we go, that'll do. Right, okay, sorry everybody. Right, shall we get going? It's wonderful to see so many people here again this evening. 289 at the moment. That's a really fantastic number. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in. This evening we're going to be having a look at a bowl. Again, yeah, I do love my bowl turning, but this evening we're going to be looking at a thin bowl, a thin-walled bowl. Now, I long time ago, used to always do fairly chunky chunky, thicker walls and stuff. But, you know, as my experience has grown and what have you, you know, I've started to make those walls just a little bit thinner and a little bit thinner. But the technique for turning a thin wall bowl is slightly different to that of a normal thicker walled bowl. And this evening I'm going to show you how I get thin walled bowls like this one here on your screen. On the lathe, where are we? There we go. On the lathe we've got, oh, let's pull that up. I've already shown it once. There we go. There we go. On the lathe I've got, it's a piece of ash, and it's, I think it's about 10 by 3. Yes, it is. It's 10 by 3 inches, which is a really nice size blank to be doing this with, because it gives you a nice sweep on the inside. It's not too flat, and it will also be really good at helping you swing that gouge round on top of the tool rest to get a nice curve on the inside of your bowl. So it's mounted onto a chuck mounted faceplate. I like the chuck mounted faceplates. They hang on a second, let me just rearrange this camera a little bit. Yeah, the chuck mounted faceplates make life a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. You could do this with a worm screw if you wanted to, with a chuck that would accept a worm screw. I've got to stop saying That's one thing that really bugs me about myself, is I go quite a lot. It might be because I don't ever use a script when doing demonstrations like this. So what are we going to do next? So it's mounted on a chuck mounted faceplate, and I've brought the live center up as well, just for an additional little bit of support. And the first thing to do, of course, is to actually get it round. So to do that, I'm going to use a bowl gouge. Before we get going, make sure that when you are in your workshop you clean your PPE. Make sure you are wearing appropriate PPE for the job, with safety glasses being the absolute barest minimum. I'm using glasses this evening for my own comfort. And also, of course, when you're sanding, make sure you're wearing a respirator and you've got any extraction or anything else like that running too. Right, so here we go again. Let's try this again. This is air dried ash. I'm going to take the bowl gouge, do my fleece up. There we go. Oh yes, I will be stopping at regular intervals during the demonstration, so if you do have any questions, please do keep hold of them, because I run these demonstrations by myself. I don't have a little earworm asking or telling me what questions there are, so please do hold on to your questions until I'm ready. Okay, fantastic. Right, let's have a look at the over the spindle cam again. There we go, there is the over the spindle camera. Everything's tightened down, the tailstock is in position, the tool rest is in place, and it's at a height that when the tool's presented to the work, the tool is cutting just about on the centre line, maybe a smidge below, and I'm just giving it a little spin to make sure that none of the wood catches on the tool rest just here. Start the lathe nice and slowly, and then build it up to a nice speed, not too quick. We're at 650 RPM here, and then I'm just going to present the tool. Nice and easy to start with. First cut just takes off most of the wax. And then the second cut there just gets it round. There's still a tiny little bit of wax left on the outside, but I'm not going to worry about that, of course, because all of this is going to be turned away shortly anyway. So I'm done with the tailstock for the time being, so I can move that out the way, and then we can start looking at preparing the bottom of the bowl. For those of you who haven't, for those of you who are really new to turning, there may be a few people here that are very new to turning. The bowl at the moment is in this orientation, so we're doing the outside of the bowl first, and then a little bit later in the second half we'll reverse mount it on the chuck. So the next thing we need to do is we've got to plane off and clean off the surface, or the bottom surface of the bowl, where we're going to put our chucking point, which tonight, in a change for a demonstration, is going to be a tenon. Start the lathe up, and we'll go with the tailstock camera. Tool rest is a smidge on the high side for what I like, a little bit lower. Make sure that when the tool's presented to the work, you're cutting right on the centre line with the handle down a little bit. You can see on the camera there that the handle is actually quite a long way down. Look, it surprises some people just how far down the handle can go, or even needs to go. Doesn't taste very good, this ash. One more cut. Nice and steady. Now, one thing I do like to do, and I think I've mentioned this in demonstrations before, is when you there's the button. When you're cutting along down here, let's use this camera. When you're cutting along down here, if you pull out really quickly, you can see that we get some fairly large, chunky, kind of spiral lines along there. But a really good way to practice steady tool presentation is to see how slowly you can move the gouge along the rest without making lots and lots of those big, large ripples. So let's have a look, see what we can do. Let's use that camera actually. No, that one. So the lathe's at 700 RPM, and we're going to put the gouge in right on the centre line. And I've got to get myself in a good position to make one cut from the inside to the outside. Nice and slowly, nice and steady. Try not to change the position of the gouge or the presentation of the gouge. And there you can see just here, I think we got a tiny little twitch just about here somewhere. And that's a really good method of practice, just to make sure you can get that tool presented and kept in that orientation throughout the cut. Really handy and quite a fun way of doing it as well. Okay, next what we need to do is mark out where we're going to put the tenon, and I have completely forgotten how big my tenon needs to be, so I'm just going to grab the chuck that it's going to go on. Bear with me a minute. There we go. You know, I start these live streams half an hour early so I can make sure that I'm properly prepared. Doesn't happen very often though. Tenon, and we're going to go with 55-ish. Right, let's just put a little mark on here. 55, 26. Oh, that'll do, about there. That's where we're going to put our tenon. I'm not going to go into the whys and wherefores of different mounting methods this evening, other than tonight we're going to use a tenon. You can, of course, use this turning technique, the thin wall bowl on a recess, but as you'll see when we start to take the cuts and stuff on the inside of the bowl, it's probably better off to use a tenon with this particular method. So next I need to make some room for the tenon, so I'm going to take a load of this wood away now. I can butcher it a little bit because it's all going to disappear anyway. Love seeing those shavings flying off. going to make it a tiny little bit deeper. There we go. That's going to need a little bit of a sharpen as well in a minute. So there's the tenon. Let's just have a look over the top of the spindle. We'll bring that in there. Not sure how focused that is, but that's quite a nice angle for you to look at. There we go. Let me just change the focus on that ever so slightly. When it stops wobbling, just change the focus on there for you. Spindle, configure, focus. There we are. And then I'll change the focus back afterwards. Right, now I'm going to use a spindle gouge to... Oh, hang on a minute. I can't see what I'm doing. There we go, let's try that. Okay, I'm going to use a spindle gouge to put the tenon on, because the excuse me, the chuck I'm going to use is, or the jaws I'm going to use are these. They are gripper jaws, so I need a square tenon rather than a dovetail one, and a spindle gouge is a really good tool to use to put this on, and it's also a very good way to put a dovetail on as well. I'm just going to square that off nicely and make sure right down here I've got a nice square and tidy shoulder for the bowl to sit on. That looks good to me. Just tidy that up a little bit. Good. There we are. Put that tool back up there, and then we'll just reset the spindle cam. Just about there will do. Focus is still alright for the time being. I'll change the focus again if I need to. Right. Okay, that is the... Oh, I've got a little bit of an internet issue. Bear with me, I need to sort that out. Hopefully that will sort itself out. It looks like that's better. Looks like that's... I think we're back. Are we back? Are we back? Can you see me? I think I'm back. Definitely got some connection issues going on here this evening. Let me just see. Let me just have a little check on our... Yeah, that's interesting. Let me just change something in here. Let's try that. I'm working on it for you folks. Please bear with me. What on earth is causing all that? Bear with me. I'm here, but I'm dropping frames like nobody's business. Let's just turn that down a little bit. I'm going to just carry on in a minute. I think it's working okay now. I'm just going to carry on. I've done everything that I can from here for a minute. I do need to just leave that for a little bit longer. Right, well, we'll crack on and we'll see. Right, where were we? That's put me right off. Never mind, nothing I can do about it. Okay. Right, where were we? What were we doing? Right, okie dokie. I hope that's all right. It seems all right. Okay, now where were we? Yes. So I've put a mark on here for the foot, and just as usual, I'd like a foot that's about a third of the diameter of the piece. So I'm just going to line the tailstock, the tool rest up at kind of 45 degrees to the wood or to the piece, and just start taking away the wood to start to make the shape that I want. Now all I'm doing to start with is just losing as much of the wood as I possibly can. And then just take a couple of little cuts down here to make the foot. There we go, there's a nice little foot on the bottom there. It does help if I look at what I'm doing when I'm rather than the screen. And also, like usual, I'm trying to get, or rather I'm putting on a nice smooth curve rather than one with sharp angles. The smoother the curve you put on, whether you're turning chunky walls or thin walls, the smoother the curve, the easier it's going to be for you to turn. There we go. That's quite a nice shape. I'm happy with that. Let's just lift that up and show you. There we go. That's a much nicer shape. Or rather, that's a very nice shape. I'm quite happy with that. The internet connection seems to be a little bit iffy, so I'm going to send my internet guy a quick message. Bear with me a sec. Bear with me a minute, folks. I'm just going to see what I can do, if we can improve anything. Let's see what my router's saying. Not a lot, I don't think. Okay. I wonder what is trying to connect. Oh well, I'm just going to carry on regardless, because there's nothing I can do to improve it, I'm afraid. Right, let's tidy up this surface with a bit of a push cut, because you can see that the surface is a little bit ropey. It's not too bad, but it could be a little bit better. So I'm going to do a little push cut round here, just to improve that as much as I can. Let's get that tool rest down a little bit lower. Whoops. Excuse me a minute, somebody keeps phoning me up. It's Mike Walt. Hello, Mike Walt. Hello. I'll give him a ring back. Sorry about this, folks. Hello, Mike. You keep ringing me. Just wait a minute. You'll see. Oh, is it? Oh, right, okay. Mike says everything's working fine. Yeah, I've got a weak signal notification on OBS. Right. Okay. I'm gonna get back to work now, Mike. Thank you. Thank you for the call. Bye. Right. Sorry about that, Mr. Walt. Everybody telling me that everything's fine with the cameras. Right. Here we go. Let's get this little cut done here. I haven't been doing push cuts for very long, and this is a... Oh, come on. Let's just ease up on that pressure a little bit. Messed it up a little bit there, but that's okay. Just tidy this bit up as well. There we go, that'll do. Not going to do any more than that. That is a much nicer surface. That looks good. Right, next thing I'm going to do now, I am going to sand and finish this. So I do need to go and switch the extractor on. So I'll just do that very quickly. Right. Okay. There we are. If you hadn't guessed, that little internet connection has really thrown me, but it's going to be okay. And I do need to take my fleece off as well. It's getting very warm in here. Oops. Sorry, I'm just derobing. Just trying to get dressed again now. There we go. Right. Okay. Right, apologies about that everybody, I was getting a little bit hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to whiz over this with the drill sander, just so we can get on with it a little bit. Ooh. Properly all over the place this evening. Okay, right, let's find a sanding head. Now, most of you will know I actually prefer using, most of you know that I prefer using an inertia sander, but because we've been delayed a little bit, I'm actually going to use the drill this evening. So we're going to start at 120 grit, wrong button, that one. Slow the lathe down a little bit. I'm not happy with this bit in here, so did a bad job of that, so I'll just put that right. Remember to stop the lathe when you're moving the tool rest. There we go. That's better. Oops. Right, okay, let's just stop there and have a look. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That looks alright for 120 grit. I can see some sanding marks on here which are absolutely fine because they're going to disappear in a minute when I've done the 180 grit.
So this is the 180 grit paper going on, or being used rather. And then I'll stop the lathe just there, and I want to have a look to see if I've taken away all of the marks from the 120, which I haven't just yet. So I'm going to do a little bit of sanding in reverse. Just a little bit, not too much pressure. Let's just take a look at that. Now I'm definitely not happy with that. Those of you who know me well will know that the finish has got to be good. I think I was pushing a little bit hard with the 120 paper, so I'm just going back to 120 and just using a lighter touch. That's better. Well, so far the demonstration's going well, isn't it? That's better. Got no idea what grit paper I'm on now. I think it's 240. Yeah, it's 240. You know, 240 is my favourite grit out of all of them. I don't know why. I just really like the finish or the surface that a 240 pad, 240 grit paper would make. Okay, let's just run in reverse quickly. That looks nice. And then we'll use some 400 to finish off. Get the pad on square, that always helps. There we go. And then we'll do a little bit in reverse as well. Yeah, that'll do. Yep, I'm quite happy with that. Throw that disc away and go and switch off the extractor.
Right, getting myself in a right muddle. Put that up there, put that on there. Right, let's start again. Well, not start again, God no. Definitely don't want to start again. Not tonight, thank you. Right, Okay. So I'm happy with that surface there. That is really nice. Now I'm going to leave the finishing of this until the very, very end when I've got it mounted on the vacuum chuck, hopefully. What time is it? 10 past 8. Yeah, we've got loads of time. So that looks nice. I'm happy with that. There are a couple of little sanding marks which I can take care of later if we need to. And now seems like a good time to stop for any questions whilst I take the faceplate off. So if anybody has any questions, please do type them in now, bearing in mind as well that I've got about a 15 to 20 second delay from 15 to 20 second delay from when I say something to when you hear it. Lee Moore, are bowl turning tool rests any good? Lee, they're okay if you get on with them. Personally, I don't like them. They tend to force me to turn a bowl of a shape that the rest dictates, and I don't like that very much. So I prefer to turn with a straight rest, as you've seen. Right, there was another question there. Martin Kavanagh, you mentioned 45, 55 degree angles. How do you measure the angle? Right, Martin, I use one of these which is, I picked this up from Axminster, and it's a gouge protractor. Very, very handy. Right, another question. Would it be any better if you had hand sanded? Absolutely not, Charles. No, hand sanding will just take days. Why do you prefer a power sander to an inertia sander? Adrian, I don't. I prefer an inertia sander. I prefer an inertia sander because it gives me a little bit more of a feel for the piece. Put my teeth in. It gives me a better feel for the piece rather than just using a power tool to do essentially something that is quite a pleasant job to do within an inertia sander. Andy Flavel, you've got no reversal on your lathe. Does it make too much difference? Andy, it won't make enough difference to be... you've got to be really, really, really picky like me to notice the difference. But what you can do is slow the lathe down, but if you're using a power sander, put the power sander in reverse and it will give you a similar surface. Rob, when you remove the tenon, do you leave the bottom flat so the bowl sits steady? Rob, stay tuned until the end, and I'll show you what I do with the bottoms. Just going to check this is running true. Graham Light, Martin, how would you advise reverse mounting a piece without a vacuum chuck? Graham, if you go back through my channel about 2 weeks ago, I put a video up on using a friction drive. In fact, this very friction drive on reverse mounting without a vacuum chuck. SK Crafts, hi Steve, I'm very well, thank you very much. Right, I think that might be it. Old Faithful, it's Ash. Right, let's just check that. That's running okay. I'll just put a little squeeze on there. I'll tell you what we'll do, folks, because this is kind of a natural break. What we'll do is, well, we'll stop for 5-10 minutes, just so everybody can go and have a comfort break, maybe grab another bottle of beer or whatever, and then we'll come back. So we'll stop for about 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, and then we'll come back because this is quite a handy natural break, really. So if you've got any questions, I will still be here. Don P, how dry is it? Don, this piece is, I'll see if I can get this open. About 14%, which is the upper limit of what I like to turn. I like to turn 14 and below, preferably 11 or 12. I find I get the best possible finishes on those. Frederick, you always appear with fantastic bowl blanks. Where do you get yours from? No, it's not a rude question, Frederick. My reply is going to be witty. I get my bowl blanks from trees. Boom! There you go. No, I get them from all over the place, to be honest with you, Frederick. Some I get from Yandles, others I get from other places. But now I'm opening my own shop with Les Thorne. We have found our own suppliers. James Martin, is your lathe bedways and tool rest stainless? No, the lathe bed itself, James, is iron, and the top of the tool rest is stainless steel. Yes. Nikki Murphy, that's very kind of you to say so. I really appreciate that. Thank you for watching this evening, and I'm glad I've been able to inspire you with your turning. Bear with me a second. I've just had a message back from my internet guy. Right. Bear with me a minute. Okay, right. We've got a couple of minutes and then we'll get started again, and we'll look at the inside of the bowl to make a nice thin bowl like this. This is where all my new graphics come in. David, aka the guy that woodturns. I'm in Hampshire. Yeah, I'm in Hampshire, and our shop will hopefully open to the public next week. If you want to check us out, David, the guy that wood turns, then have a look at www.thewoodturningshop.com. B Drizzle, yes, Hampshire Sheen is me. Hi, Paul Smith. James, getting the Leadstone spindle gouge when it's in stock. What's the grinding angle and how to achieve it? Can't remember off the top of my head, James, but I'm pretty sure it's 45 degrees on the middle. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 45 degrees on the middle hole on the long grind jig. Right, anybody else with any... Hi Don P, how are you? New face, clearly, as Don P says he's found this by chance. Don P, do I do this on a regular basis? Yeah, every Tuesday up until the end of December, and then I'm going to look at possibly carrying it on in 2021. Frederick Day, you'd love to be the first customer. We'll let people know when we are open, because we don't want to open obviously during lockdown, but also we've got to be careful how we open, because if we say yay we're open, what we don't want to have happen is have loads of people coming. Oddly enough, we don't want to have loads of people coming and have obviously social distancing in the shop and stuff like that, and have people waiting outside. So we're gonna be careful how we open. Mark Richardson, yes, in answer to your question, but please don't just turn up. If you know where we are, Mark, or if anybody knows where we are, please don't just turn up, because at the moment, because we're still putting it all together, then we will have to turn you away, I'm afraid. Designer mate Martin, fourth tool from the right on your rack, the coloured one. Where did you get that from? I made it. Design and make. B Drizzle, I can't wait for the shop to open either. Martin, is it true you're going to grow a beard? No, I actually had a shave this afternoon. No, I'm not going to grow a beard, Mike. I'm not old enough to grow a beard. Right, okay, let's crack on. I'm going to just switch this gouge out for the other sharp one, and then we'll get going. Hi Scott Hampton. Right, switch over to the other gouge. Right, there we go. Now we're ready to go. Now, the aim of this demonstration, as you would have seen from the title, is turning a thin-walled bowl like that one on the screen, and this one here that is illustrated. There we go. These walls are about 4 to 5 mil, something like that, and that's thin enough. I think you can go thinner if you really, really want to, but we're going to look at doing something about 5 mil. Bear with me a second. Just still sorting out the internet. Put that onto silent. There we go. Getting lots of pings from the family. Right, okay, so what we've got here, as you can see, we've got a nice thin bowl here. Now if you have a look, I need to show you a different bowl as well. So that graphic that was on the screen just there a second ago was using a tenon, but let's have a look at this. What's happened? Ah, there we go. Right, yes, if we have a look at this bowl here in this graphic, you can see that there is a recess in the bottom of it, which makes turning a thin wall bowl actually quite difficult, because you've got a hole in the bottom of your bowl already. So if you go too thin, you're going to get fairly thick, fairly chunky at the bottom of the bowl. So in my opinion at least, it's a good idea if you want to turn thin walled bowls to actually turn with a tenon rather than a recess, as illustrated here. Now the diagram that's on the screen here, the chucking method there is vastly exaggerated, so it's just there as a token thing, so don't pay too much attention to that, but do pay attention to the slightly thicker bottom than they are the walls. That's because we've already put our foot on here in at the beginning of the turn. So how do we go about doing those thin wall bowls? Well, we've got to do it in a slightly different way, or a completely different way almost, to how we turn bowls in the other way, where you start from the inside and work your way out. We're going to be working from the wall and working our way back in a section of steps like that. Now I will explain each of these diagrams as we go through, because I do have them to show you one at a time. But as you can see there, the bevel in each position down that graphic, the bevel is in contact with the wood all the way down and is parallel to the outside of the wall. Okay, so if we have a look here, if we just pull that back up a touch and get it into position, there we go. Right, I hope you can see that okay. Right, so here's our outside wall, and in each position round there, the bevel of the gouge is parallel to the outside of the wall. That is really, really important to remember, not just when turning thin bowls, but generally if you want your inside curve to match your outside curve, your bevel needs to be parallel all the way down through the cut. So there is our blank at the moment. It is essentially solid. If we go back to the spindle cam, we have a solid blank here, pretty much. Let's just lift that up a little bit. There we go, that'll do. That's roughly in line. Me being overly picky about it again. There we go, we'll put that just there. Right, so this is not exactly to scale as per the diagram. Where is it? There it is. But it's close enough. So we're going to get the tool rest in position first, and we've got our main solid blank here. Now if we skip over to the tailstock cam, there we go, the tailstock camera, I want to put on a fairly thin wall, but what I'm going to do first of all is just take off the surface here. There we go. And then I don't normally worry about this, but I'm just going to put a little pencil mark roughly where I want the wall to be, which is about there, about 5 millimeters, something like that, which I think is what is it, an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch, whatever, something like that. So the first thing we need to remember is make sure that we keep as much of the wood in the middle as we possibly can. So as we go through each of these cuts, we're going to start working from the outside in. So there's going to be cut 1, and then we'll do cut 2, then we'll do cut 3, then we'll do cut 4, 5, and then 6. But of course you don't have to do 6 cuts to go down in these steps. You could do 10, you could do 20, it doesn't matter. So long as you get down nice and evenly and safely, and the further down you get, don't come back. But I'll explain all of that as we go through the turn. Now, just like normal bowl turning, make sure that your gouge is cutting right on the center line, certainly when you reach the bottom. So when you reach the bottom of the cut, you'll be cutting right in the right position down there. Now what I like to do first is take a little bit off the very top, like here in cut 1. We're going to take a little bit off the top. Let's go overhead. I'm going to take a little bit off. And then I'm just edging my way back to where the wall starts. Okay, now, whoops, keep an eye on what I'm doing. What I'm doing here is I'm making sure that the bevel is lined up parallel to the wall. And I'm going to make a little cut. Let's just change the camera for you. I'm going to make a little cut about half an inch deep, half an inch deep, and then that sets my wall depth. I'm going to take a little bit more out of here. There we go. Right, so there is our first cut. Now bear in mind that the bowl in the diagram is essentially a 2-inch thick blank. This is the blank I'm working on is a 3-inch thick blank. Now if we go back to the tool rest cam, there we go. I'll just turn that off for a second. You can see that we've got a nice surface on the inside there and about a 5mm wall, which is super nice. So if we go back to the blank, go back to the graphic, you can see there that the inside of the bowl has got a little scoop out, or just in there somewhere, and we've gone down about the same depth as the length of the bevel. I hope that makes sense. Now we're going to go down to step number 2. So we're going to take a little bit more out. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to take a little bit off the top here. Get a little bit more speed in the lathe. Take a little bit more. I'll try and keep it nice and neat for you. So I'm going to take a little bit more away. And now if we go back to the over the spindle cam, or rather leave it on the tool rest camera, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub the bevel down the cut I've already made until it starts to cut again. Take a little bit more away, run the bevel down, and still keep that bevel parallel to the outside wall. It's getting a little bit thick, so I'll just run that down again, pick up the cut from there, take a little bit more away, and then do it again. Now for the next cut I'll do it with the other camera for you. So you can see now that the wall is nice and thin all the way down. We'll just look at that over the spindle. We've got a nice thin wall. The inside wall is parallel to the outside wall because I'm keeping the bevel parallel to the wall on the outside as much as I possibly can. It's very difficult to see what you're doing, which is one of the reasons why we go down in little bits and just keep on checking each time, so we can make sure that we are parallel on the inside and the outside. So we'll just pull up graphic number 3 and we'll go to the tailstock camera. Whoop, there it is. I'm going to take a little bit more away. You can see that we've still got a lot of wood left in the centre of the bowl. So I'm going to pick the cut up. So I'm going to pick the cut up just by rubbing the bevel down there, and if I just hold it there and move back and turn the graphic off, you can see that I've got the handle down just like I would do turning a normal bowl. Take away a little bit more and run that down again. Being careful not to get too much of the wing in contact with the wood. You can see there, I think there's quite a lot of wood on the wing there, and it's really important not to take off too much with this bottom wing here, because it's very easy to get a catch and have the tool pulled into the work and then the bowl disintegrate into lots of different pieces. So I can tell we're a little bit thick here still, so I'm going to take a little bit more out. Just a little bit, and we'll stop there and we'll have a little feel. Still a little bit thick. Not taking too much off with that bottom wing. Oh, what have I done? I've just turned it off with my knee. That's not very clever. Okay, now we can take a little bit more off the top. And the gouge is going to need a sharpen in a minute, so I will stop. I'm going to stop and give it a sharpen. Okay. So I'll just go back over to the Pro Edge. Sharpen it up. Very important to keep a nice sharp gouge when doing this, because some of the cuts are really quite fine, particularly when we have to go back to just take off a little bit more of the wall there. But no, that feels nice. I'm quite happy with that. Now, another thing that we need to have a look at is back hollowing. Back hollowing is it's not dangerous as such, but it is potentially catch-worthy, because when you, let's just swing that back down there a minute. Back hollowing is where normally you hollow out a bowl this way with the flute pointing away from you. Let's pull that just in there. Normally it goes that way, so the flute is pointing this way, but when back hollowing, you're actually there we go. But with back hollowing, you're actually coming this way. Now this is potentially catch-worthy because you can take an awful lot of wood off with the bottom wing there. And then as you come down, if you're not very careful, you can actually catch the shoulder of the gouge on the side of the work, potentially exploding it. Obviously we don't want to do that, so we've got to be very careful how we do it. But let's just take another look, or for those of you who remember back in the summer when I was doing these, let's just have a look at the different parts of the gouge. The things I mentioned there are the wings, that is the long cutting edge from the top of the flute round the front of round the tip of the gouge, which becomes the toe, and then you've got the shoulder where the cutting edge runs back and becomes the blunt flute. So they're the points that we're looking at or being careful of here. So back hollowing, let's have a look at that. Back hollowing, you can see on the graphic there, we've got the back hollow, but the bevel is in contact with the wood. It's nice and safe so long as you keep the bevel in contact with the wood all the way down like this, and not take off too much. Now if I just stop the lathe just there, you can see in here, if I'd taken that cut much further, I don't think I can get any closer than that. If I had taken that cut much further, I'd be taking off almost the entire wing of wood, and that would almost certainly leave me with quite a hefty catch, which obviously we don't want. Let's just move that back up there. There we go. So that is our back hollow, and that's really good at taking out quite a lot of the remaining wood from the inside to give you a little bit more room to get the tip of the gouge down there for the rest of the cuts. But I still want to take some off the top, which is what I'm going to do next. And for this you can use kind of traditional gouge cuts. And you can, if you want, you can be fairly brutal with those cuts if you need to, because after all this is essentially just waste wood, wood that's just going to end up as shavings. Just rearrange the tool rest just a tiny little bit, and now I've got enough room here that I can get down there quite happily and take out the rest. So we're going to move on to the last few cuts. This isn't... Oh, let's just get that tool rest down a tiny bit. The graphics on the screen are there just to illustrate, obviously, because they are illustrations. But one thing that is... Hold on a minute. Right, one thing that is important is now we're down here. Let me just put a little pencil mark in there just so you can see it a bit easier. The pencil mark I've just put in there is essentially the bottom of the wall at the moment. It's really, really important that you don't come back too far up the wall. So if you've got a big lump up here, don't come back to try and fix it after you get too much further down, because it is going to, or it is quite likely to go wrong, because the wood is weak here, there's nothing there supporting it. The wood can start to flap and it'll start making a really horrible noise like this. So I'm coming back. That noise there. Now I'm taking a very fine cut here. I was taking a very fine cut there with, I'll showed you the wrong angle. I want that camera. There we go. Yeah, I was taking a very fine cut there, so I'll do it again. So I've come back about halfway up the bowl, and you should be able to hear a really nasty kind of shaking sound. There it is. Now that's going to leave me with essentially some shake marks on the inside. You know, the little spirals that you get in there. Those spirals appear because the wood starts to shake and vibrate, so it doesn't get an even cut all the way down. So now what we can do is we can carry on cutting, we can carry on going. Take a little bit more out as we go. I'm just going to double check how thick how thick this is. That's nice. Yeah, that feels good. I'm happy with that. But I want to take a little bit more out down the bottom here. So I'll just lose that graphic. Take a little bit more out down the bottom to give me room to do the cut. Now, being careful not to take off too much wood. Take a little bit more away from here. I can go a little bit deeper. Going to stop there and have a little feel. I'm actually getting a little bit thicker down here, so I do need to come back up here a touch. I need to come back up here very, very carefully. So I'm going to run the bevel down there and pick the cut up. Then I can take more off. Now the tourist is a little bit on the high side. And I can move it in a little bit closer. Now here we go, we're getting down to, let's see if I can just zoom this in a little bit. There we go, and I can just leave a little mark just there to say that's where I'm going to pick up the cut from. So I'm going to run the bevel down the cut and pick it up right there. And then just here you can see I'm picking up quite a lot of wood. That's too much, so I can take away a little bit more of this pyramid in the middle. Now it's at about this point when bowls are getting thin that those of you who turn with recesses may well end up joining the funnel club. And for those of you who don't know, the funnel club is an informal club that a wood turner joins when they cut through the bottom of a bowl. So if you're not too careful, you can actually go through the bottom of a bowl when you're turning thin walls with a recess. So you've got to be careful with that. I'm just checking my wall thickness again. I'm a little bit thick, so I can take a little bit more off here. I can take a little bit more off. So I think I will pick, I'm going to pick the cut up about there. This is where the previous cut ended, but I need to pick up the cut about there. So I'm going to take a little bit off here and then come back to pick up the cut about there. Take a little bit more off here. The gouge could do with a little bit of a sharpen as well, actually. Let me just sharpen the gouge. Do. Yeah, we're coming down to the final few cuts now, so we've definitely got to make sure they've got a nice sharp gouge, particularly when we get down to the bottom where the wood isn't moving very quickly. There we go. Right, okay, so taking a little bit off here. That's better. And now this is where our previous large cut finished, and I want to pick the cut up a little further back. Just there. A little feel. Yeah, not too bad. I need to pick up a little bit of the cut. Need to pick it up about there. Well, roughly where I was before, actually. About there. Just take a little bit off. Run the bevel down there carefully. Pick the cut up. Make sure I'm taking some wood with me. And then we can stop there, have a little feel. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. We can take a little bit more off. If I bring the cut back to about there somewhere. Take a little bit off from there. Well, we can take a little bit more out the middle as well. Just drop the tool rest down a tiny bit. That might have been too much. And then very carefully pick that cut up from there. And make sure you've got a nice round bottom. And there we are. Why is that not working? It might be. Yes, it is. There we go. Yep, there we go. That is that's the inside of the bowl done. Now you would have or maybe you noticed, because we took such quite a long time overturning that, you didn't see what the gouge was doing. Now the gouge was actually running in the same way that it does when you turn a normal bowl, as in handle down and then come round and bring the handle up. So let me show you. We start with the handle down. So the handle started down like this. Let's do that one. So the handle started down and was down, and we were raised, coming above the center line up to here, and then at the end of the cut we were bringing the handle down, bringing the handle up. So we were running round in that kind of orientation, or that kind of way. Take that tiny little bit at the bottom. That'll do. I'm quite happy with that. Great. And that wall runs about 5mm all the way down. Now, and you'll also notice there aren't that many tool marks in there. There aren't that many tool marks, and that is because the bevel has been in contact with the wood all the way down, and I've been very careful how each cut has been picked up from the previous one. And the trick to doing that is making sure that you remember the position of the gouges. So if you look there, we've got various positions of the gouges. So if you stop, let's just pick one, there we go, position 3. If we stop cutting at position 3, which is, say, there you go. If you stop at position 3, if you stop, it's important that you put the gouge back in that position when you start the next cut. So as you get further down, position 5, which is over here, make sure that when you stop the cut in this instance, position 5, you stop the cut, you start the next cut with the gouge in the correct position for where it should be on the inside of the bowl. That's really important. Okay. Cool. Right, next what we're going to do is sand it. Now I do want to get this completely finished by the end of the demonstration, so I do need to sand it. So I'm going to switch the extractor on again and stick my mask on. So I'll do that quickly. Right, okay, I'm back. So with the extractor on, I'll put the ceiling fan on as well. So although we've got very few tool marks in here, the surface isn't absolutely smooth. It looks really nice on the screen, I'll give you that, but it's a little bit lumpy in places. So there's nothing wrong with using your sander to sand the inside down nice and smooth for you, just to get rid of those little marks. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But obviously the better surface you can get off the tool, then the less sanding you're going to have to do. Now although I absolutely love sanding and I love finishing, as most of you already know, I don't love sanding that much. And for those of you who hate sanding, if you improve your tool presentation down to a level where you get a nice smooth surface like that, you'll find that although you hate sanding, you'll actually have to sand less to get to a really nice surface that you can put your finishes on. I hope that makes sense. So on with the mask. I've got my glasses on already. Slow the lathe down a little bit, and I'm going to use the power sander again. Just slow the lathe down a little bit. And then just sand the inside. Now because we've got thin walls here, we don't want to be putting too much pressure on the wall. Or we don't want to be putting too much pressure on it. So just a fairly light pressure is all that we're going to need to do. And I'm moving the sanding head fairly slowly. Just to make sure that we get all the surface nice. Use the air gun just to squirt a little bit of that dust away. That feels okay. There's a little lump just about here, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And then from 120, same as usual, go down to 180.
Give it a little squirt out with the air gun. So again, just being careful how much pressure I put into the piece. I certainly don't want to be putting very much pressure on. And at this point I'm going to do a little bit on the rim as well. Put a little bit on the rim. Then down to 240. I'm going to clean the grain out again. I don't like sanding sawdust, or don't like sanding dust, so clean it out. Little bit on the rim again. I'm going to slow the lathe down. Just take the corner off as well. A little chamfer on the corner. That's looking quite nice. I need to do a little bit more on the rim. Let's have a look at that. A little bit more. I've slightly angled the sanding head in, which is going to give me sort of an internal chamfer. Yeah, it's going to give me a little internal chamfer, which just tips the wall in a little bit, or tips the rim in just a little bit, and looks really nice. One more disc to go after this one. Last bit, which will be some 400 grit. Stop there, give it a little blowout with the air gun. You can see the amount of dust coming off this, dust coming out of the grain. There is a lot of dust that gets caught in the grain, so it's always a good idea to get rid of that. And that is the inside sanded. Right, I'm going to put my big fan on down there and switch the extractor off.
Okay, now there we go. So here's our piece. Here's our piece nicely sanded down to 400 grit, and I've blown all of the dust out of there. Now we're going to start to look at how we're going to finish it. I'm going to keep the inside of this really plain. Actually, can you imagine that? I'm going to keep the inside plain. But I do need to seal it first, so I'm going to put on a couple of coats of sanding sealer. Wherever it's gone, up there. Ooh. Now, one thing I did forget to mention is about the actual turning. I did mention about going back after you've got a certain way down. That's really important. Don't go back, and also don't try and take a scraper to it either. A scraper is just going to make that wood shake a lot, and it's going to leave you with a really poor surface, and possibly even shake the bowl to destruction. So you just got to be careful and make sure that each of your cuts all the way down is as good as it possibly can be. And if you do have a ridge, or you do have too many tool marks, then I would absolutely suggest, as I said, not using a scraper, but instead I would just sand it out. There we go, put that on. I'm going to leave that to dry. It's important that you leave your sanding sealer to dry. I keep saying that, I say it all the time. Right, so I'm going to leave that to dry. I think we'll stop. I think we'll stop there for another little break, just for 5 minutes, because I need a comfort break. So we'll stop here just for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll look at turning the outside, or we'll look at finishing the inside, reverse mounting it, and then doing something on the outside. So 5 minutes, everybody. So actually I see that it's 7 minutes past 9 here, so let's say we come back at 1/4 the hour. Okay, 1/4 the hour. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. Does anybody have any questions on that? Just while that sanding seal is drying. Anybody have any questions on that? Ow. There's got to be a good 20-second delay here. Bead drizzle, yes, it is my sanding sealer. Hampshire Sheen, pre-thin sanding sealer, and I do need to put another couple of coats on. Mark Richardson, purple. That's not a bad idea. Lauren, Martin, with a thin wall bulb, what is the best RPM to run at, or what RPM should you not exceed? Oh, Lauren, that's an interesting question. It depends on the size of the bowl. I wasn't cutting this at. I mean, to be fair, I very rarely turn bowls at over 800 RPM. In fact, very rarely over 700 RPM, to be honest. With good tool presentation, you don't need to turn really, really quickly. And I've seen, certainly in the last few months, I've seen a lot of new wood turners on social media hurting themselves because they're turning their bowls, their first few bowls, far too fast, and they're getting catches, and bowls are leaving the lathe, and they're doing some damage to the turner, and that's never good. So, make sure that you do keep the speed down. Certainly no more than 700 RPM, to be honest, I would say. Adrian, thank you very much. Anthony, thank you too. Big thanks to Anthony. Really appreciate that super chat. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. So we're actually still a little bit early. So if anybody has any other questions that I can answer whilst we're doing this. Jennifer Stroughton, I know what you're referring to. I sent you an email yesterday and posted it in our Facebook group as well yesterday with the links to everything this week. Rob, not really a question, just wanted to say that was a masterclass in turning. Oh, Rob, that's very kind of you, Rob. Thank you very much. No, I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you. Martin, hi Martin, says, when I get close to finishing the last bit of the bowl, the gouge chatters on the tool rest. How do I correct this? It's a little bit difficult to explain, Martin, but normally if it starts to chatter, then your tool presentation isn't quite right. When you get down to the bottom of the bowl, when the gouge, let me show you, when the gouge is in, hold on, tool rest, there we go. Yeah, so when the gouge is right down the bottom, this is what you're referring to. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Turn it there. Let's just find the centre. There it is. Right, so when you're down the bottom, your flute needs to be up. The flute here is pointing up. There's inside the flute, and your flute needs to be pointing up like this, and the handle back. So you can see here that the handle's all the way over here, and your flute needs to be pointing almost completely up, but not so it's rolled over too far. If it rolls over too far, it's going to catch. So just keep it up a little bit, and also make sure that you slide that gouge in nice and steadily, nice and slowly. Brian Anderson, thank you very much indeed. David, do I ever angle the tool rest into the bowl, save hanging over? It doesn't make a huge amount of difference. Sorry, something beeping over there. It doesn't make too much difference. Let me show you why. So when you get down the bottom of a bowl here, your pivot point is about here. And if I mark that, let me just grab a Sharpie. Your pivot point is about there on the tool rest when the gouge is in the correct position. Now this is important, that the gouge is in the correct position. You could be over here, but with this particular gouge, the correct position for the bottom of this bowl is there. If I turn the tool rest in a little bit and put the gouge in the correct position, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. It certainly doesn't make enough difference to stop any chattering or any vibrations or anything like that. So really, there's not an awful lot of point. In my opinion. Right, who else? Who else is there? Gerard, can you use a gouge with a fingernail profile to the same effect? Gerard, this is a fingernail gouge. It's got a fingernail grind on it already. Oops, wrong one. There we go. It's just not a particularly long one. Ridley, you're very welcome. Thank you for saying so. Stuart, yes, that monkey puzzle. Yeah, the monkey puzzle bowl. Yes, I can't do it on this bowl. It needs to be something quite big, but essentially it was a reverse push cut. I'll have to see if I can demonstrate it some other time. Lauren, no, this bowl gouge is 55 degrees. Hi Darren Spurgeon. Yeah, this gouge, Lauren, is 55 degrees. Wrong camera. There we go. 55 degree bevel with this one. So I turn the whole bowl with 55 degree bevels. Right, let's get back to the piece now. So now we've got the sanding sealer on there and it's drying off nicely. I'm going to give it a little spin up and just give the sanding sealer a little bit of a burnish, just with a little bit of kitchen towel. This just helps to denib it. Now I've got to be careful, remember, because these walls are quite thin, so I don't want to be putting too much pressure against the wall because the bowl's going to start to flap essentially. There we go. That'll do. Now I'm not going to put any finish on the inside, not yet, because I want to reverse mount it onto a vacuum chuck, so we can take the tenon off. Actually, yeah, let's put a little bit of finish on it. Let's pick up that ruler. Oh, okay. We'll put a little bit of gloss wax on it. Why not? I think everybody almost expects me to be putting gloss wax on stuff now. I'm going to just rub a little bit on there. I don't want it too shiny, so just a little bit. A couple of coats should do. Bearing in mind as well that I am going to be using the vacuum chuck, which is going to suck some of this wax back out again. So I don't want to be putting too much on at this stage. So a single coat going on there. Let's drop that piece of kitchen towel on the floor. That's not very good. Paul Huyton, thank you very much. And then we'll give this a little spin up and give that wax a little buffing, Again, we don't want to be putting too much pressure onto this piece because it is thin. There we go, that'll do. Now, I'm going to be using the vacuum chuck to reverse mount this, so I need to take the whole piece off on the chuck. I'll show you why. So I'm going to put the spindle lock on. Find the chuck key. Take that off. And then put the vacuum chuck in. Normally this this vacuum chuck stays in permanently, unless of course I'm using the spindle for something. So I'll just slide that in there. Clean the end off. So if anybody's interested, I'm using the hold fast vacuum system. And find a chuck. I'm going to use the 6-inch chuck, I think, rather than the 3-inch. Yeah, that'll do. So the vacuum chuck goes on there. Now, one other thing I do have. Oh, hang on a minute. Just need to rearrange a couple of bits and pieces here and knock out the live center. Where's the knockout? Where's the right size knockout bar gone? There it is. There we go. Now, one thing I do have is essentially a 2 Morse taper M33 threaded insert, which I'm going to put into the bottom of the chuck, and then this sits in the tailstock. Just blow that out the way. So this slips in the tailstock just here. So now everything should, fingers crossed, run absolutely true and centered when I switch the vacuum on, like that. Now I don't want to put it on too tight or too high. Right, that sounds like it's made a connection. There we are. So you can see there. Now I should be able to undo the chuck like that and move the tailstock away, slow the lathe down. Look at that, the magic of suction. Now I am just going to turn the vacuum down a little bit. Oh, that'll do. I don't want it on too tight, otherwise it has a habit of sucking all of the finish out. And obviously we don't want that. But sometimes it can't be helped. And then just we'll put the live center back in, or a live center back in. Slide that up. Get the tool rest into position as well. A live center is always a good idea, just for a little bit of extra support. There we go. Spindle cam. I'll bring that down there. Just going to check the focus of that. Yeah, that'll do. Now I'm going to take this off. I'm going to take the tenon off with a spindle gouge. Don't need to be going particularly quickly, but I do need to be going quicker than that. So I'm going to speed that up to about 500 odd RPM, something like that, and then we can very carefully we can very carefully take the tenon off. Trying to keep the bevel rubbing along these cuts all the time as well. Yes, I'm back. Sorry, there's a good delay going on at the moment. Gosh, what a nightmare we've been having this evening. Still, we're nearly finished, thankfully. Right. I think we're good to go again. Right. Okay, well, we're nearly finished and virtually everybody's gone. Never mind, it's one of those things, the joys of the internet. But, you know, I'm doing what I can. Let's just sort the exposure out on that camera. I've got a feeling something updated whilst we were online here, because then it suddenly just disappeared. So, and then when I was trying to sort it out, I had a notification pop up on the screen that says something. I didn't really read it, to be honest. What does that say? Richard Shirajan, I think that pronounced it. I want a mesh Wi-Fi router system. Absolutely no idea. Right, there we go. So what I've done, whilst we were waiting for the internet to reconnect, what I've done is I have just burnished off the sanding sealer there a little bit, and I'm going to put one more coat on. Put one more coat of wax on, and I don't know what I'm going to do to finish it. I might just leave it almost as it is, just with some gloss wax, because we are running late now, which is a little bit of a shame. Just give that. Don't want to press too hard. We definitely don't want to be pressing too hard on here. Remember, because we've got thin walls on a vacuum chuck, and although the vacuum chuck is very, very stable, very, very secure, what we don't want to do is possibly lose the suction by pushing too hard on the side of the blank. So I think what we're going to do to finish this off is I'm going to stick some black wax in there. Really nice black wax just on the outside. And then what the black wax will do will just highlight the grain nicely. Yeah, that one. Yeah, the black wax will just highlight the grain nicely, and before you start getting all scared, oh my god, what's he done? The majority of this is actually going to be buffed off. Put a little bit in there as well. I don't normally do the feet, but I haven't put my maker's mark in the bottom, so. Now this, because we're putting this wax in the bottom here, it's another reason why we cleaned the grain out initially, because we want somewhere for the wax to go. If we leave the grain full of dust, what you end up with is a slightly less vivid or rather a less vivid piece, or a less rich piece, shall we say. Because the wax can't get into the grain very well. Get that up there. There we are. That'll do. Should have worn gloves, but never mind. Now we're going to give that a second or two to get into, or to start to dry off just a little bit before we buff it up, which gives me a good opportunity to say, does anybody have any questions? Tell you what, we are running late, so I'll come back to questions. So I'm just going to buff that off now. I want to get a little bit of warmth into it. So we start to buff it off and remove the excess. And remember, with these waxes, with these embellishing waxes, they pick up all of the little faults that you might have in your piece. All of the teeny tiny little sanding marks, the tool marks. Nothing is safe from these embellishing waxes. Let's have a look at that. Oh yeah, that looks really nice. That I'm not going to put any overcoat on it because the embellishing waxes are essentially a finish in their own right. I could overcoat it with a little bit of high gloss if I wanted to, or some microcrystalline wax, but you know what, I don't think there's any need to. This has turned out really nice just as it is. So that's it, that's the piece done. And if I switch off the vacuum, I can turn it round and we can see on the inside that because we didn't use the full strength of the vacuum, we've got no surface damage on the inside. It has pulled a little bit of the wax up, a tiny bit, but nothing that a little cut back with a pad, not that I can find it. I'll sort that out later. It's getting late, so I'll put that up there. Move those out of the way. I'll put that up there, and we'll just rearrange this camera tailstock. Oop. You know, things aren't quite going according to plan tonight. There we go. There. I know there's no memory card in it. And there we are. There is our thin-walled bowl. I hope you like it. And I hope it all made sense despite the little interruptions that we had. Yes, yeah, despite the interruptions we had, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll just show that to you again. Wrong camera. There you go. It's that one. So, thank you very much indeed for watching. I will stay. I've got 5 more minutes before I need to get back to before I need to stop, basically. So if you do have any questions, please do ask them right now. Roger Delaney, yes, I put sanding sealer on before. Always put sanding sealer on before the embellishing waxes. Thank you, Frederick. Mike Walt, yes, I sent you an email yesterday and posted the Zoom details in Facebook. Paul Morris, question: when do you envisage you will return to face-to-face teaching? Next week, Paul. Next week, after lockdown, there are courses bookable at thewoodturningshop.com. Lauren, no, you don't need to finish the inside before you use the vacuum chuck, but it's a good idea to certainly put some sealer on that will just help stop the vacuum chuck pulling air through the grain, particularly with open grain woods. Clive Gouge, you're very welcome. Thank you very much. Becky and Adam, this will be available for 7 days. Andy, you're very welcome. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for watching. Stuart, what do you do with all your demo pieces? A lot of them I actually burn. Oh no, that's really bad. But I did give a couple of pieces away to some family friends today. Oh, there we go. The lathe inverter's just turned itself off. Roberts, you're very welcome. Thank you for watching. David, the guy that wood turns, gotta go. See you later. Nice to see you, David. Thank you for watching. Right. Right, I think that's going to have to be it for tonight, folks. Thank you very much indeed for watching and sticking with me during the little internet connection issues. I know what it is and I will have it remedied for next time. That's about it. So if you... I've lost what I was going to say. It's been one of those nights. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments, your questions, and if you left a super chat, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. All of the money that comes from the super chats all goes back to keeping this kit in tip-top condition and developing it and moving it forward as well. And I do know what's wrong with the internet, and I will sort it out later. So that's it. I'm going to say thank you very much, love you and leave you, and switch over to that camera over there. I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Am I back next week? No, I don't think I am back next week. I can't remember. Let me just have a quick look. Yes, I'm back next week. It's the week after that I'm not here. So yeah, I'll see you next week with a new project. Not sure what it's going to be yet. We shall see. And for those of you who are members of Woodturning 360, I will see you in Zoom in just a few minutes. Thanks very much, everybody. Good night.